Now in JavaScript, there are multiple approaches to write functions, each functioning slightly differently. However, despite these variations, the methods remain fundamentally similar. And let's explore the different ways to write function in JavaScript. Now the first way of writing function is by using function declaration. And function declarations are a core concept in JavaScript. They allow us to declare a named function. This type of function is defined using the function keyword followed by the function name. And we already used this type in our previous video. Now to create this function, we just need to use our function keyword, then the function name, which in my case is calcage. And here we need to add a parameter, like here I am using birth year, and then our curly brackets. And I am creating this function to calculate age. And in order to do this, first we need to define current year. Now const current year is equal to 2023. Then const age is equal to current year minus birth year. And then simply we can return this from this function. Now this is called function declaration. And we explored this way of writing function in our last video. Now after this, we have function expressions. Function expressions offer another way to define function in JavaScript. These functions are often assigned to a variable which can be useful for more complex scenarios. And now let's see how we can write this same function using function expression. I am just adding a comment here that this is function expression. Now to create a function expression, first we are going to create anonymous function. So anonymous function is a function that don't have any name. And we can create this by just using function keyword. After this we need to use parentheses and then these curly brackets. Now here we are creating the same function using function expression. Then in this function I am going to use the same logic. So I am just copying and pasting this code into this function. And the last thing that we need to do here is to store this function into a variable like const calcage expression is equal to this function. And now this is a function expression. And now the difference between both of these is that we are not storing this function into a variable. On the other hand, we are storing this function into a variable. And here first we are using function, then its name, and then parameter. But if we want to create a function expression, first we need to create a variable and then we just need to define an anonymous function. Now the third way of writing function is by using arrow function. Now the arrow function provide a concise syntax for writing functions. They are essentially handy for more shorter and more straightforward functions. It is important to know that they are not hoisted, meaning they need to be defined before you use them. And using const keyword to declare them is a good practice because it keeps them as a constant value, which is safer than using var. If your function is just one simple statement, you can leave out the return keyword and curly brackets. But it's a good idea to keep them for clarity. Now here is how we can write an arrow function. Now to create an arrow function, we need to do the same thing that we done here while creating this function expression. Now here first thing is to create a variable const calcage arrow, then equal to, then in this function we don't need this function keyword, so we just need to add here parameters. In our case we just need birth year, and then simply we need to use this equal sign and greater than. Now this equal to and greater than here is equivalent to return keyword. Now, if you have only one line of code, you don't need to use these brackets. So, like you can write current year minus birth year. Here, instead of current year, we need to write 2023. And this is how we can write our arrow function if we have only one line of code. Now, let's say if we have more than one line, like if we have two or three lines, then we can write the same thing like this. Here, instead of returning this, we are going to use our curly brackets, and then in here we can provide our code inside of these curly brackets. I am copying just these lines of code, then pasting here. And these are the three ways through which we can write functions in JavaScript. Now, from these three methods, you can choose any method that you like while writing your code. Now, we also have self-invoking functions. Now, self-invoking functions, also known as immediately invoked function expressions. They are essentially functions that execute automatically as soon as they are defined. These functions are often used to create isolated scopes, manage variable scope, and encapsulate logic. Now, self-invoking functions are similar to this function declaration. Now, if we want to make this function a self-invoking function, first we need to write parentheses, then we can simply copy and paste this function into these parentheses. Now, at last, to invoke or call this function, I just have to add parentheses at the end of this function. Now if I hit Ctrl plus S, you can see nothing is happening because we are just returning age. If we want to see the result in our console, we need to log the value of this age variable. And because we are using parameter, that is why we also need to add value for this birth year, which I am using 1997. Now if I hit save, you can see we are getting the value which is 26. And this is how we can write self-invoking functions. And here the function is defined and invoked immediately. It's enclosed in parentheses to signify that it's a self-invoking function. This can be particularly useful in scenarios where you want to run a specific piece of code only once without affecting the global scope. Now, while creating an arrow function, if we have more than one parameter, then we also need to use parentheses, like if we have birth year, and also if we need to pass current year, then we need to use parentheses around both of these parameters. Otherwise, if you have only one parameter, then there is no need of including parentheses here. Now after this, we have hoisting. And function hoisting is a fascinating concept in JavaScript that plays a crucial role in the order of execution and code organization. It allows us to call functions before they are declared in our code, which might seem difficult at first but is an essential behavior to understand in JavaScript. Because of hoisting, we can call this function declaration before its actual declaration. Like if we want, we can call this function before it is declared. Now here we are calling this calc age function before its declaration. And surprisingly, it's working. As you can see, the result of this function in our console. And this result you can see is coming from line number 22, which is this line, and it's working perfectly. This is due to the function hoisting, a JavaScript mechanism that brings function declaration to the top of their containing scope during the completion phase. In simple terms, the JavaScript engine silently moves function declaration to the top of your code before it runs it. However, this behavior applies only to the function declarations. If we do the same thing with this function expression or this arrow function, this will not work. Let me show you. Now first I am just commenting this line of code. Now if I call this calc age expression before its declaration, and here because we are using return keyword, we need to use console.log, and here I am just calling our calc age expression function. Now you can see we are getting an error. Uncaught reference error, cannot access calc age expression before initialization. So now I hope you understand that this only work with function declaration, not with this function expression, and also not with these arrow functions. Now if I call this after its declaration, you can see now it is working. Only thing we just need to add the birth year, and perfect. We have our age in our console. Understanding function hoisting is essential for writing clean and organized JavaScript code. It's also a reason to declare your function at the beginning of your code or within the scope where they are needed. This ensures your code is more predictable and easier for others to understand. And that's all that I want to show you in this video. I hope you found this exploration helpful. If you did, give us a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe for more exciting web development tutorials. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. Keep coding and keep creating. I will see you in the next video.